Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome. We are here with Jill Jackson. Jill is an internationally celebrated psychic channel, spiritual teacher, and published author known for her empowering work as a soul alchemist. Through her intuitive guidance, Jill helps clients awaken and ignite their sacred gifts, creating profound shifts in their spiritual journeys. As the author of Manifesting Your Magic in the 5D, Going Beyond the Laws of Attraction, Manifesting Your Magic in the 5D Workbook Journal, and Mississippi Medium, My Journey from Southern Baptist to Talking to the Dead. Jill's teachings inspire students worldwide to embrace their magic, transform limiting beliefs, and step into their divine purpose. Please help me welcome Jill Jackson. So happy to have you here, Jill. How are you?
I'm doing amazing. Thank you for having me, Odette.
It's a pleasure to have you here and just want to dive into your journey. Um, I wanted to ask you because there are so many of us starting to awaken right now on the planet, in the United States. How was your life before you received all of these gifts?
I was born able to see the spirit world. So they've kind of been with me since as far back as I could remember. But, there were just random people walking around my house all the time, and I could not actually hear them until I was 12 years old. So that was my first time where I had the clairaudience, and that was with my beautiful grandmother who passed to spirit. So I would say that my gifts have been with me always. However, I tried to fit into sort of the normal society. I went to college, I became a CPA and a business manager. And it was during my, I guess, 20s and into my 30s that the gifts were just really amplifying and amplifying until the point where I became sick, and we'll talk about that later. But yeah, that's kind of, I did go the corporate route, like many have.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, I had a question when you started to talk about how you were born seeing spirits. Some people like when I was young, I saw spirits as well. And it didn't really scare me, but the thought of telling other people scared me more. So just wanted to gather your thoughts. Like when you were young, did it frighten you to see the spirits? Did you have a relationship with some of the spirits? Like, how did that work? I know that there's people in the world right now that may have this gift, but they're kind of afraid to kind of let it out or, d let it develop. So I guess that's where the question, where the question is kind of leading towards, is for those people.
Yeah, absolutely. They did scare me in the beginning just because I couldn't hear them and I didn't know who they were. But when my grandmother passed away and I was 12 and she was full form floating above my bed and telepathically letting me know that, she was on the other side and in heaven, many people call it, and that she was not sick anymore and there was nothing to be afraid of. From that moment forward, I lost all of my fear of the other world. It all just kind of fell into place and made sense. But I did not, I call it coming out of the psychic closet. I did not fully come out of the psychic closet for probably into my late 30s because again, it's just not something that fits into normal reality. So I understand so many people who are in fear of embracing their gifts and telling the world who they are and what their gifts are. I understand it completely.
Yeah. So I guess in that in your journey kind of embracing your gifts, like was there something that kind of soothed you to go through that process of like coming out of the closet just little by little, how was that process for you?
Yes, it was, Spirit has a way of we're not following our soul's journey to, um, there's obstacles along the way. And for me, it was getting very sick and being diagnosed with
Mm,
lupus. And my
wow.
grandmother had actually passed away from lupus. So it
Oh,
was kind of a wake up call for me to examine many things. So I started just taking classes, but in the beginning, I created a profile and I was making predictions on a prophecy site probably 25 years ago. And for me, that was kind of a way to gradually step in without anybody really knowing who I was at that point in time. So, yes, it was gradual.
okay. Wow. And did you have a support structure? Did you have friends in that space? Maybe family members that were, in that space?
My mother was a medium. She passed into spirit in 2016, but she never wanted to embrace it professionally. She just felt like it was a lot of responsibility and it wasn't really her calling. But she did understand my gifts. My sister has always been supportive of my gifts. She doesn't really have the gifts per se herself, but her children do. All three of her children do. And then my dad understands psychism. So I was blessed in that I did have a family structure who embraced me when I did tell them that I was jumping off that cliff to go into this work full time. I had a lot of support.
That's wonderful. That's really wonderful that you had that. And now, what about your friends? Did you have already friends in those circles, or was there a shift there?
That was over time when I really started taking more and more classes. And then I was tested into Best American Psychics. I believe in 2012 is when I got up the nerve to go through that testing because it's two blind readings to be invited into Best American Psychics, and less than 10% are accepted in. And so at that point, when I was welcomed into that group, I started meeting a lot more colleagues. And then through going to advanced training classes as well, I still have friends to this day that I met at, trainings with John Holland and Lisa Williams and Mavis Patilla and many others. And I went to England to study as well.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. So just I'll ask you this question about like, intuition and if you're not born with these kind of intuitive gifts, can you learn them? And if you can learn them, what would you say is the biggest block towards that?
Great question. In my opinion, we are all born with intuitive gifts. And what happens is society, whether it's our parents or teachers or just, the church many times tells us that they're evil or they're not existence. And so that starts creating a bit of a trauma that we bury in our subconscious mind that reiterates that same playing mantra of they're not real, I don't have the gifts. And, we all have the gifts. And in my opinion, it serves everyone to learn intuitive development. Even if you're not going to hang up a shingle and do this work professionally, people can use their intuition in every single career spectrum. In fact, 75% of my students over the years were not planning on becoming a professional psychic. They're using it in medicine and law and corporate America and teaching and on and on and on. So yes, I feel that everyone can benefit. And then the main block is our own fear, which comes from the ego. And again, it's from the subconscious mind and traumas and triggers that we have. And that's the main block to embracing our gifts.
Yeah, so when I was young and I started to see spirits, it didn't really scare me, but again, the thought of other people knowing that I was doing or I saw this and I started to open up to other gifts, I didn't like that feeling. And so I actually shut it down. I said, "You know what? I don't want this. I don't want it." And it wasn't till like my 40s that I started to embrace the gifts, and allowed them to flourish. But it was a good, you know, 20 plus years that I shut it down because I was too afraid. I think I was afraid of being called crazy. And as weird as this may sound, I kind of resonated with the witches that were burned, in Salem. I was like, it's like I don't want people to think I'm crazy. I don't want to be like a lunatic, being put in a just a ward. And I thought that's where I would go if I told people. And now there's more and more people coming out with these gifts, and they're not being called crazy. But yeah, when I was young, I just, I didn't tell anybody.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's such a common fear. And there's a lot of validity, to people not understanding. And then the past life persecution comes in for many of us that did bring and remember our gifts in this lifetime, have the traumas from being persecuted in past lives as well. And so that is stored in our subconscious mind and in our DNA. And it's important to work through those fears. I mean, I was still working through those fears for myself, even as a professional psychic medium. Those traumas were still buried there. And so it takes some time, but we can overcome those fears. And it's why community is so important and
Yes.
finding our tribe and
Yes.
connecting with those who do understand so that we don't feel so crazy. And, I tell my students, how boring is it to be normal anyway? Who wants to be considered normal? It's much fun to
Yeah.
be eccentric.
Right, right. So how would you suggest for someone to work through that fear of, being seen, as the person that they are with, some of these gifts, and embracing not only for themselves, but also being open to their family members or, their loved ones about what is happening.
Yes, it's a process and it's
Yeah.
definitely an individual process. In my level one intuitive development program, I tackle that right away, not in level two, three, and four, because again, when we can understand and recognize what our fears are, that's the first step. And it's so interesting to me over the years how many different fears there are from the students who have studied with me online and have studied with me in person. There's 5 or 6 valid fears, if not more, that many of us have. And so I tell my students, just take baby steps. And when we start peeling back those onion layers to understand our own truth, then there creates a momentum there that we step more and more into that power. And by stepping into that power, it helps us have the courage to really, truly step into our authentic selves of who we are and to start claiming that to other people.
I love that. I love that. And if you were to have if there would be like a practice or maybe like a mantra or just something that people could do to kind of soothe them through that process, would you have any advice or any suggestions on that?
Yes, a great mantra is I am safe and
Mm,
I embrace my sacred gifts.
mm,
I embrace my divinity. I embrace my authenticity. Yes, and just start speaking those mantras every day. And, science has proven that it takes between 3 and 4 weeks to rewire our brains. And so that's a beautiful mantra to start doing that.
that is beautiful. I love that. Yeah, thank you. So I'm curious about your book, Manifesting Your Magic in the 3D. And you write about how the law of attraction doesn't work or may not work in the way that we had hoped for. And so I just wanted to open up the conversation to that and see if you could expand on that.
Yes, absolutely. And it's manifesting in the 5D, not the 3D. So
Okay.
it's interesting that
Sorry
you
about
brought
that.
that up
Yes,
though,
3D.
because that's a great point, is so many of us, and myself included, for so many years didn't understand that manifesting in the 3D is a very dense energy. It's a dense
Mm-hmm.
dimension. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's the dimension where our ego mind is at forefront. It comes in with those fears, that tell us you don't have the money, you don't have the talent, you don't have the skills. What are you thinking? That overplaying of negative false narratives that come in. And
Right.
so I have always been a master manifester. I was able to manifest anything I wanted. My friends and family would marvel at it. I could speak it and it would come into being, except in one area. And I tried multiple times to be a biological mom. I was following the law of attraction, doing all the teachings of it. And after 5 miscarriages, not only was I
Mm,
grieving that loss, but then I was also feeling like a manifestation failure and feeling bad about myself. Why wasn't I able to manifest that? I did everything according to the teachings of the law of attraction. And so I went on about a 3 year quest to find those answers. And I also started discovering that a lot of my clients had similar stories, that there was maybe one area in their life that they had been unsuccessful in manifesting. And so that's what led to me writing the book, so that I could share with others what I discovered along the way.
yeah, I'm sorry about your loss. Yes, yeah.
Yeah, it was a painful period for sure.
Yeah.
Many years of grieving, and I
Mm,
write about it in detail in my book, about all the stages that we go
mm-hmm.
through, from anger and
Mm-hmm.
grief and on and on and on. But I was speaking recently, and someone in the audience asked me why I felt like that those of us who weren't able to manifest something were given that prison sentence. And I said, in my humble opinion, I don't look at it as a prison sentence. I look at it as soul growth opportunities, because the truth was, in my original blueprint, I chose with my own free will not to be a biological mother in this lifetime, but my soul had forgotten that. And that's what the 3 year quest
Mm-hmm.
led me on to discover.
Wow, it's so powerful and it's everything is perfect, really. Our lives are perfect as they are, and we often, forget that, and I know that I've been through my own dark night of the soul, but when I look back at the moment, I was, wasn't a pleasant experience, but after, I just thought, wow, that was perfect because that made me who I am right now. And if I hadn't have gone through that, I wouldn't be the person that I am. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And while we're going through it, like you said, it's certainly not fun. But when we look back on our lives, I feel like we can all agree that the most growth comes from those moments of challenge. And if we
Yeah.
can just get quiet and allow ourselves the human emotions of the grieving process and processing the anger and the frustration, but not stay anchored in that energy. And that's the
Yes.
key.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Um, I'm curious, for those that have lost loved ones, um, is there always the opportunity to connect with those on the spirit side, or is there always that channel, or are there some times where maybe that particular spirit may not be available to us? Like how does that work with the spirit
Yeah, that's another
worlds?
great question, Odette. So, our loved ones are always willing to connect with us. So if
Mm,
you come across a medium who says otherwise, in my humble opinion, that is ego. Now, can every medium connect with every spirit? No, because it's just like in life, we resonate with each other. And so, over my many years of being a medium and connecting people with their loved ones on the other side, if there's been a handful of times that I was not able to connect with the very loved one that they wanted, I would refer them to a colleague that I trust, and vice versa. I have several colleagues, and again, it might be 5 or 10 times in your whole entire career. It doesn't happen a lot where that connection is not made. And I remember two occasions where and it was separate women who came to me and only wanted to communicate with their children, their child who was in spirit. And both times I initially was not able to make that connection. And both of them were sons, by the way, and other family members came through, but not the son. And I gave each of them an option I would either refund their money, refer them to a colleague, or let them come back another day the next week. And both of these ladies individually that did not know each other chose to come back. And within those moments, I connected immediately with their sons. And so it was just quite interesting for whatever reason. And I had connected with other loved ones on that day. For whatever
oh,
reason,
wow.
that channel was just not dialed in where it needed to be. But I was just so grateful that they gave me another opportunity to come back so that I could connect them with their children.
Wow. It's beautiful. That's really beautiful.
And it goes back to training, Odette. So many new mediums, and I hear this from a lot of new mediums. They say, well, I can't call it in at will, but it comes in the most inopportune times. The spirit world will be talking to me when I'm trying to get a massage or taking a shower or sleeping and, on and on and on. But that's where training comes in and it helped me in my journey, even though I've been seeing the spirit world since I was a toddler.
Hmm.
Going through training helped me hone those skills and those gifts. So I'm a huge advocate of professional training.
Yeah. Yeah. I have not been through professional training, so um yeah, I would imagine that it is very helpful if you do the exercises, and I'm sure that expands, and also being in your presence too. I mean, you've channeled and been through so many situations. Yeah, you probably just kind of nailed it down on how to expand that skill.
And even my own teachers, I cannot imagine I would not be where I am today with my gifts without my teachers. And I remember when I trained with John Holland, who also trained with James von Prague, and what he told me stuck with me. He said to the group, and it was about 50 advanced mediums from around the country and around the world. And what he said was, as I climb the ladder to my success, I will always be looking up at James von Prague. And he was a little more blunt than I will be on this, but it was so comical, but it really anchored in because what his teaching was that he will always have, an honor and respect for James as his teacher. And I feel the same way with my teachers. I've probably had 12 different teachers along the way, and I've learned
Oh,
something from every single one of them.
wow. Yeah. I guess everyone has their own way of learning, and you might resonate with, some of the teachings of one and another, and then maybe you have more tools because someone does it a certain way and another person does it a different way. So,
Yes, absolutely. And then it's energy too. I mean, some of the teachers just being in their energy activated and then meeting the other mediums from around the world. I mean, just on and on and on. And the same, when I finally became a spiritual teacher myself, probably 15 years ago, I really, even though I was being encouraged to start that journey earlier than that, I really wanted to make sure that I was fully anchored in before I became a spiritual teacher myself. But I will always have honor for my teachers, and I encourage my students too to train with other psychics and mediums and channelers because, like you said, we learn something from each person's energy. That and so, during that 3-year journey, what I discovered was, in addition to other spiritual laws that support the law of attraction, we also have a soul's blueprint, and that's when I really understood that my soul had not chosen that. So I could have practiced the secret and the law of attraction for, 10 years, and it was just not going to be in this lifetime. And that's why I wrote the book to give other people the tools. And then the workbook journal helps with the shadow work and questions and journal prompts to help us get to the core of who we are and also to understand our own traumas that lead to that shadow aspect of ourselves.
the shadow aspect, I believe, is probably the most profound teacher for all of us. And I think some people think, oh, being in the spiritual path makes us, it's all happy and glorious and always, just, rainbows. And it's not. You have to really, like you said, do the shadow work behind, yourself and really look inward. And that's not easy. That's really not
No.
easy.
No, we all want the fun parts of
Yeah.
learning to work with the tarot cards and the pendulum and
Yeah.
the scrying mirrors and, on and on and on because that's fun and uplifting. But like you said, there's an aspect of that. And it was one of my probably most growth areas as a spiritual teacher myself, because in the beginning, I was not teaching shadow work. I was teaching, the divination tools and helping people understand their clairs. And then I was literally watching people just kind of self-destruct because when
Mm.
we have these gifts that are not built on a strong foundation, that foundation starts crumbling because if we have not met our shadow, the triggers come out at really inopportune times. And a lot of people that start on the path of awakening and start developing their gifts and choose to ignore the shadow. And there's a spiritual term, and I teach about this now, called spiritual bypassing. And that term says, may we not be um, into everything as love and light to the point where we ignore aspects of human suffering. And may we not go into love and light and not use our voices, because part of using our voices helps with evolution as well. So in my humble opinion, being in love and light is also speaking our authentic truth when marginalized people and different people are, injustice is there, but each person has a
Yes.
different path on that and where they fit in with that.
Yes, absolutely. Could you maybe dive into maybe some suggestions that you have on people that are diving into their shadow work, because they do want to go into the spiritual path or get to know themselves more and connect. Um, what suggestions do you have? Because right now we are in a place and time where the world is a little chaotic, to say the least, you know.
Yes.
So,
Yes. For shadow work, I definitely recommend books or courses or retreats. Like I said, I wrote the workbook journal. There's others out there. There's people that lead, 3 and 5 day retreats to because it is something that it's so important to do, but we really want to be gentle with ourselves
yes.
as well. Because when we start peeling those onion layers back and really understanding the core of who we are, and the key is, I hear people talk about the death of the ego, but in my opinion, we don't want to kill the ego because our ego helps us. It's part of our personality. It's our ID, our identity. But embracing the shadow work helps us understand what is our own ego and what is our higher self and kind of how to integrate that. So, for that, that's one area I do feel like help is needed through a book or an online course or retreat, or, there's people that specialize in helping others navigate that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so important. Um, so the other question is, you coined the term life in your book, and just wanted to know a little bit more about that. Could you kind of dive into that?
Yes, absolutely. When I coined the term LIFE, it's an acronym that stands for Limitless Information for Everyone. And what that means is when we can integrate the fifth dimension into our own awareness, we are accessing what's known as the quantum or the collective consciousness. And that is truly where we share ideas with each other in the collective. And it's the fifth dimension. Ego cannot reside in the fifth dimension. So we're able to tap into that limitless information.
I love that. So I guess manifesting in that, it's almost like you can manifest anything you want.
Yes. And, when we connect in that way and we raise our vibration, what we learn, and, I teach about the 10 spiritual laws for manifesting. I teach about it in my book, but one of them is the spiritual law of trust and surrender, because so many people, when they're manifesting, get into an energy of control. And, myself included, I say that I'm a recovering control addict, control freak, because, I was always like, I've got this, I can do this. And that energy of, I'm going to make this happen, darn it, no matter what it takes. And it's like, if it's not aligning with our blueprint, then we are going to have those roadblocks along the way. And part of that trust and surrender is getting into the flow of knowing that the universe is going to deliver for us as long as it's in alignment with our soul's blueprint.
I love that. I really love that. Yeah, I know that in the past I've tried to go a certain way, and I tried and I tried and it was so hard, and the universe did not want me to go that way. And it had to just, shut the door many, many, many times, and I finally I finally just saw it maybe after the 10th door that was shut, you know. It's like, okay, maybe I wasn't meant to do this.
No, because we do that as humans, right? We choose to ignore the signs, and that's the other really cool thing about awakening and raising our vibrational frequency because we start noticing the synchronicities. And when my clients will say, "Oh, I finally, started getting the signs and the synchronicities," what I say is, "My dear, they've been there all along. It's just once we raise our vibration, then we're able to notice the signs and the synchronicities."
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And you have a new the next book coming out, Children of the New Earth.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm really excited about this book. It's a channeled book, and in 2014, I received a channeling from a group by the name of the Emerald Group, and I was told that there was a new breed of children that would start incarnating in 2015, and they would be known by the Golden Rays, and that they had never had an incarnation on this planet. However, they were very wise old souls. And, I talk about it in the book how I went through my own ego of, who do I think I am? I wasn't even able to have children. Why am I writing a book about gifted children? And so I talk about my own journey of walking through and finally having the courage to say, okay, my soul agreed to write this book. And I'm so proud of the book. It should be coming out by May. It's kind of
Oh,
the target
okay.
date.
Oh, I'm
Yes.
excited. I'm really excited. Yeah.
Yeah, it's for all of us, parents, grandparents, teachers, because there's so many breeds of star seeds and light workers. And the cool thing is, in the book, I start um, with the indigos and actually a little bit before, and then just keep going forward into the blue rays and the diamond rays. And, I'm the first one that was channeling about the golden rays. Um, and I'm interviewing parents of these gifted kids, and it's just amazing.
That's amazing. So, can you tell us a little bit more about that? I mean, we don't want to give away, everything that's in the book, but just give us a little bit more. I mean, the golden rays, I would love to know more about that.
Yeah, so specifically with the golden rays, their sole purpose is to help um, not humans so much as they are here to help Mother Earth and to also help us um, sort of combat AI and technology and transhumanism. So they're very connected to to computers and technology. So many of them have challenge in interpersonal relationships with others, whereas the group before them, the Diamond Rays, who came in on the 11th ray, they are still connected to connecting with other people and
Right.
helping others. And even some of the parents that I've interviewed that have the diamond ray children have noticed that their children are the ones who will be compassionate when they see others that are not fitting in, or
Mm.
they're compassionate when they see maybe children with special needs, and they just go over and start loving on them. So they
Mm.
bring more of that energy, whereas the golden rays have more challenges with interpersonal, but they're very connected to animals and nature. In fact, one of the first, I believe the first golden ray child that I channeled was she was still in utero, and her parents came in for a session, and she told me she was a golden ray, and she told me that she would have an affinity with wild animals, with like out of this world experiences. And her soul was so elevated that I was just crying in this session, connecting with her beautiful wise soul. And the mom emailed me when her daughter was 4 years old, validating everything that had come through in that session, and actually sharing a story where her daughter was in the backyard one day and a bear came up into the yard, and the mom is kind of watching, and this bear bowed down in honor of her daughter.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
I mean, I still get emotional thinking
Wow.
about it. And I mean, she goes on and on with other examples. And I've seen that, with others, and even for myself. I mean, I'm an indigo, but I have zero fear of the animal kingdom. I've been within feet of bears, and I'm not advocating for people to go out and
Yeah.
start petting wild
Do
animals by any means.
it.
Uh, we want to respect the
Yeah.
animal kingdom, but yeah, these golden rays, it's just fascinating, and they look different as well.
How do they
Um,
look like?
they kind of look otherworldly. They look a lot like hybrid children. Um,
Uh-huh.
very large eyes.
Right.
Sometimes their ears are a little
Little
different.
different. Okay.
Yes,
Oh my
yes,
gosh, that is so interesting. Wow.
yeah. It's
Now, do you
fascinating.
typically see them like maybe with other maybe like autistic or, maybe some other kind of no.
Not so far
No.
with the
Okay.
golden rays.
Okay.
That seems to be more with the crystal and the rainbow
Oh,
children.
okay. Okay.
Yes. And it's even coming out. There's an MD, and I can't remember her name, who has a podcast called Telepathy Tapes. And
Yes. Yes, I was
okay, have
just
you?
reading about that. Oh my gosh, that's
Yes,
amazing with
yes,
telepathy and the kids can just talk to their parents and
yes,
I was amazed when they talked about a story where the mother was downstairs and she was looking at the show where there was a man who had prosthetic legs, and he decided to go to the Special Olympics, and he won the Special Olympics, and so she ran upstairs. She wanted to tell her child, who I can't remember what the child, I'm not sure if it was autism or, and it was something similar, ADHD, autism, and she was proceeding to tell the child, what she had saw, and she wanted the child to come and watch the show with her. And right when she was about to tell the child said, "My legs are fine. I don't, and I don't want to do Olympics." So he already knew what she
yes,
saw. So it's almost like beyond telepathy because she hadn't even finished saying and thinking what she was going to say. She was just about to say it, and he already had watched what she had watched downstairs. Isn't that
yes,
amazing?
absolutely. And I just love that science and the medical community is now,
Yes.
supporting this. We've known it
Yes.
for so many
Yeah.
years as psychics, but now it's being
Yeah.
proven in a
Yeah.
beautiful way.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. Um, well, I would love if we can move into like a channeling. If you're feeling it, if you're not feeling it, no worries. I don't want to put any pressure on you. Um, what do you think? What are you feeling?
Yeah, I can definitely channel. So let
Okay.
me, now I do go into full trance
Okay.
when I channel. So I'll just need a couple of minutes, and
Okay.
we will
Take your
see
time.
if,
Take your time. Yeah.
okay. Greetings, our brothers and sisters. I am known as Solomon, and I am a ninth dimensional Palladian being who is delighted to be receiving and giving information through the human channel you know as Jill. As you understand your society and your reality is on the precipice of evolution, and many of you are experiencing it through the energy of a revolution. And we are here to remind each and every one of you that revolution, as you understand it in your reality, comes forth in many varied ways and into the higher dimensional consciousness and awareness. We invite those of you who identify as light workers and star seeds on your planet to join us in the spiritual revolution of anchoring in a reality through the lens of love. Each human has the free will opportunity to experience the next evolution of your species through the lens of fear or through the lens of love. As humans, it is impossible to embody the frequency of both at the same time. And we are here to lovingly remind you that the energy of love brought forth in a powerful and pivotal way will collapse the matrix as you understand it. These are evolutionary times on your soul's journey, and we congratulate and applaud each and every one of you who has answered the calling to assist in humanity's expansion into the age of what you understand to be enlightenment. Do not fear, our brothers and sisters. Those of us in the higher realms stand forth and bravely and courageously intervene in ways that do not interfere with your own free will on the planet. We invite each one of you to connect with your galactic soul families and to begin communicating with us and asking us for our assistance. We are here to shift humanity into the next epoch of time. And many of you have heard the terminology heaven on earth. Heaven is a vibrational frequency. It is the frequency of the collective consciousness, and each one of you has the free will to integrate this into your awareness. And our parting words for today for each one of you is to remind you that in every moment you are co creating with each one of us in the higher realms. Remember your power, remember your empowerment, and remember to be in the moment of the now. When each human remembers their authentic truth and steps into the power of the now, humanity shifts forward in ways unimaginable, and we in the higher realms are delighted and honored to assist humanity on this special journey of evolution. That is all for now, and we send you many blessings until next time.
Thank you. Thank you, Solomon. Thank you so much. That was really powerful. Well, I could talk to you probably for days and never get bored or tired. I just want to thank you so much for being in this interview and just agreeing to channel and share your gifts with the world and looking forward to your book. I wanted to before we go to the next speaker, I wanted to talk about the community that you have and the free gift that you're giving to the audience.
Yes, we have a community called the High Vibe Tribe, and it is a community of seekers and light workers and psychics and mediums and just like-minded. You know, it's a safe community where people feel like they can be themselves and they can get to know other light workers and star seeds as well. So we wanted to give that gift to the people who participate in the transformational summit.
Yes, thank you so much. I will put a link in the description below, and that way people can access it. Thank you so much, Jill. I appreciate
Absolutely.
you. I appreciate your gifts and your presence. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, Odette, and thank you for this summit. It is
Mm,
so needed and so powerful. And, it's just so important for us to all join together during this time. And it helps us understand that we're not alone. So many of us are awakening into the truth that we are more than our physical bodies. So thank you for hosting this powerful summit.
thank you. Thank you for saying that. I appreciate that. All right. Until we meet again.
Thank you.